Hi, I'm Rosie, and this is your invitation to join me in my weekly musings, where I go into a little bit more of soul searching. The stories of our lives create a beautifully colored tapestry, interwoven by connecting threads. When we follow these threads that are tugging at our hearts, we're open to each other's creativity and higher artistic frequencies. So, here at the Mystic Rose Studio, you might hear some quirky sounds in the mountain setting. But wherever you are, and in the midst of all your quirky sounds all around you, I invite you to join me and keep following those threads. Respect your time because I know we both can talk, and especially I can talk to you forever. So,
Yes, I know, right? We will we will have time in the future to do that for sure.
exactly when I go visit you.
Yay! We're so excited. There's so many things. Oh my goodness. Oh,
Well, there's
we're
just like
just yeah.
so much going on right now, and it's accelerated so fast.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been like a spiral, but like completing cycles to moving into the next timeline and completing cycles and moving into the next timeline. But I finally feel like there's a foundation that's about to be built, you know. Everything that I've been dreaming about is all coming into fruition. So I'm excited, but it's like receiving all of it all at the same time. I'm just like, okay, yeah. So,
I know, and I love that you said that because it's true. It's like you can put out what you know you are ready to receive, but then when
yeah,
it comes, of course, it never looks like the way you think it's going to look. And then you
never,
realize like
never.
how small we were and that we were kind of
Yeah,
thinking it was only going to be this. And then of course there's this like, can I really do this? But there's nothing
yeah,
that's
yeah,
offered that you can't step into because also
exactly.
we're not doing it alone.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the resistance comes when people to two things. They either don't recognize that in front of them is what they were asking for, it just doesn't look like what they imagined it to be.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
or they shrink and they're not ready to step into that next version of themselves, which is fine.
Yeah,
There's still
yeah.
more work to do. There's always
There's
more
still
work to
yeah,
do.
there's always more work to do. But yeah, that's like I really try to, anytime when there's a level of resistance, I really see that as the expansion is happening and I am, no matter what, I'm gonna push through it because it's such like, why wouldn't I? Especially if I asked for it.
Exactly.
Um, and so we all ask for those expansions, but like you said, it's like when it comes, it's like, you don't even see it how you see it or you wanted it to be, but it's still in that same foundation that you thought of. Like it's still there. You're like, oh, okay, so this is how it's gonna work. So yeah, it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey this year. Just so much growth in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, and I think it happens like the process, like the birthing or the death of the birthing process feels really long, but then when you're
Hmm.
like on the other side, things like are quantum jumps, right? They
Yeah,
accelerate really fast
exactly,
because you're vibrating higher and you're like ready for the
exactly.
next shift and move. It's like being Neo, right?
Yeah,
Going
yeah,
back
right.
into the matrix, like
Yeah,
everything's
going,
slow motion.
yeah, yeah. Everything's so slow, and like I always, since especially since I live here now, time is just so not like
Mm.
I can't even function in that frame unless I have to put my attention. I have to really intentionalize me in this time because, as you stated, when you do jump into that other aspect of yourself, you're jumping into another frequency. So the mind, how you move is all in relation into something that's more divine.
Mhm.
And so like the time, it's like I really trust in how things work out on that higher frequency level versus like the actual 3D time. Even though time is needed, we do need time because it keeps us here. Without time, like, our minds, we wouldn't be able to handle all this, so we need some type of structure. And I do think time, that's the structure. But in regards to how I move in a way where I'm moving with the divine. I'm moving with that divine time, whatever that time frame is.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love how, like, that's really what time travel is, right? Like, that time
Mm,
is that, like, web that kind of gives us a little bit more of a container to be able to slip in and out of.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if we both know, like, spiritual seekers, you can go to, like, the extreme and just be up and
Hmm.
out of the body, and you live in
Yes.
that space,
Yes.
and that can be dangerous too, because the
Mhm.
whole
Mhm.
point is to come back in here, in this plane, in this world, to be able to make a difference, and if you
Exactly.
can't bring that knowledge from higher frequencies back into this realm, then you're just kind of living in a fantasy land.
That's it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I know you and I have, and I always mention this in class, like talking about living too much in the air
Hmm.
and not enough earth, and so just learning to balance that out, learning to balance out. Yes, we are all spiritual beings, and we know that, and it's a high ride, but when do you come back to earth and bring all that wisdom and bring all that knowledge back here, so you can really be of service of the human consciousness?
Yeah, and I think that's what we see in those that I think we know we're called to work with, are those who,
Hmm.
I mean, like, somebody who will see you and will, like, people who are gravitated towards me, and they'll research you and they'll be like, okay, this is a powerful motherfucker, like, wow, right? you know um and I think people know that they want to learn
Mm.
from that energy, from those who've already kind of are walking the talk, like, have gone through that. But what they don't recognize, I think, and when I say young, maybe not necessarily age wise sometimes, but young
Yeah.
in this, still that wrapped in the path of, like, but how come I'm not, and
Yeah.
one, it's their
Yeah.
own journey, and two,
Hmm.
they're looking at where you are or where I am, and they're not
Hmm.
recognizing all the shit we've already gone through and are still going through,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
integrated that and alchemized that,
That's so. Yes. That's so real. So real.
and I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, I know when I speak to people and they come to me and I'm listening to them and I'm talking to them, and I could
Hmm.
just think about those that are also in your community, that I'm like, they
Hmm.
don't real like, they know they're powerful, but they haven't stepped into it yet. They're still
Yeah.
kind
It's like
of
there's a
spinning,
there is a
Yeah.
yes, it's funny, and also like that acceptance, right?
Hmm.
Like that acceptance that you are powerful,
Yeah,
and here are your superpowers, so to
exactly.
speak. That took a minute for me. That
Yeah,
took years for me to embrace, to really fully embrace. Like, okay, wow, damn, what does that mean?
yeah.
Trying to logically fit a container around it, and you can't.
No,
You can't. And
exactly.
also the responsibility of, once you do, that dismantlement that takes place, um, things just happen so swiftly. And this is where you find yourself possibly attaching to things to keep you from that
Hmm.
power, to keep you from really recognizing that power.
Hmm.
And as you stated, and yeah, I don't know what to call it either. I play with the words. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if they're soul souls or whatever.
Yep.
But just the because these souls that are here, that are in the younger age, are very wise. They're very intelligent spiritually. Like, they they get it, but the emotions,
Yeah.
right? That emotional initiation, and learning that if one is not really balance and master out their emotions, then you can't even fathom what your power is because you're still walking in that emotional body.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like it's like they're walking around like like Wonder Woman and Superman, but they have the glasses on so they think no one sees them. I like to think of
Yeah.
it like, when I recognize that I'm playing small, or I visualize, like, I think I'm covering my light, but there's this little tiny thimble on my
Oh
head, and I
yeah.
think that that's like doing it.
Right, right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's not
Yeah.
doing anyone a service, like, to play small. It's not
No.
helping
No.
anyone. Like, we think we're
It's not.
maybe making people feel comfortable because, they might feel uncomfortable with us, but, like, I think you've seen, like, I've just seen you. I like to say, like, I recognize when people are about to, like explode, and I'm like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
this is a great time to be around these people," because, like,
Yeah.
I get charged from that energy. And
Yeah.
seeing your expansion too, even though you were already, like, fed up, ready to go, and then once you
Yeah.
moved to the DR, this, like, calm presence, and the same thing happened to me when I moved to the mountains. Um,
Mm,
it's like I no longer had to consciously do the work, because now I was already
right.
in it, immersed in
You
it,
was
and I
already
was
in it.
just
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's like when you're when you're in a construct that you outgrown, you tend to still feel like you have to do additional work to maintain, your sanity and
Yeah.
maintain your balance. But then once you step out of that construct and come back to what's natural for you, no matter if it's, for me, it's just nature, being in these elements, being in a tropical environment, it's like, okay, I'm here. I'm here where my spirit has always wanted to be, and I'm finally
Mm,
here.
yeah.
So it's like now you ground yourself in this energy, and now you can build from a sustainable place, and you're not exhausted. And
Exactly.
this is what I try to tell people, as far as people who are still like kind of like weighing out their options and that matrix construct. My thing is, how exhausting does that become when you're doing it over and over again, and then you come to these places and you recognize like you actually can breathe better, your mind is more clearer, you're more creative. So which one is more in the resonance, and that's the one that you follow, I believe. You follow that, and because that is your natural way of living. So and that's a transformation. That is, and that takes so much trust. I don't like to use the word courage, but that takes so
Mhm.
much trust,
Yeah.
and trusting in the unknown,
Right.
that once you make that move, no matter what move it is, once you make that move out of that environment that that has kept you small and kept you contained, like that's a big transformation. Huge. It's a
Yeah.
big leap.
And you know what? I like that you used courage, because I think courage, people misunderstand that as that you're not afraid. Like your
Hmm.
community
Hmm.
lion heart, a lion, they're still going to be afraid when somebody's coming to mess with their pride, right? Like, there's
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
I get it.
fear there, but because of that, you need to bring in the courage. But I think
Mhm.
in these cases, what people misunderstand is they think that they have the courage. Well, in the beginning it might look like the courage to speak up, the courage to say no, the courage to
Mhm.
say, I'm not going to do what somebody just says to do, just
Yeah.
because, the courage to say, I I can see spirits, around me, or whatever it is,
Mhm.
like.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
eventually the truth of the matter is no matter what, it's the courage to be able to trust yourself, to trust
Yes.
that you're going to keep promises to yourself and you're not going to keep
That's right.
lying to yourself and saying, I
Mhm.
can do this. And then, no, maybe I can't. Like, can you trust
Mhm.
and have the courage to really sit with who am I? Who do I want to be?
Yes.
And
Yes.
can I trust that I'm still going to, even if I'm scared shitless, walk this path and
Mhm.
I will be
Mhm.
supported and I will find people
Yes.
that will help me, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like that part that cuz like we said at the beginning, we're already calling it in. Like we're already calling it in as
Hmm.
to where we want to be. And you know, I was even thinking about the term shaman and how shaman means to know. It means to know
Yeah.
thyself, pretty much. You know, so it's just like when you come
Right.
into that knowing and you just take the gloves off of yourself and you realize what's in front of you is something so much more powerful, and you bring that opportunity in. That's when you're like, okay, like, am I going to fully accept this and step in? And that does take
Yeah.
courage and that takes trusting. And I just find a lot of, especially now with the souls, who again they have this higher level of awareness of spirituality, doing all this quote unquote work, and then it's like,
Hmm.
okay, here's the reward.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm like, what
Yeah,
the hell did you
exactly.
do all this work for then? Like, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, but it's
So
still
yeah,
safer to, stay with, until until it's so the staying stuck in where you are is so uncomfortable that you'd rather not go through the change and not knowing,
mhm,
then you're just going to be in that eddy currents and keep
yeah,
going in circles,
it's gonna
which
keep
is
on
fine.
cycling.
That's where you're at.
That's what
That's
you.
fine.
Yeah,
There's no judgment. That's just
that's the lesson, right? That's just the
right.
lesson
Exactly.
that that soul has decided to go through.
Yep.
That's what they decided to do. But I'm, as you know, and as you know, as you are, and even how we met, like we met, like I believe that group was the pivotal like monumental moment for myself to like expand, because there were so many
Yep.
powerhouses in that group. Like everybody was powerful as hell. So that
Yeah.
group also initiated me to even step up more. And you've been a part of that journey big time. And so, but like look at all of the weaving that has to take place, and the
Exactly.
starting overs, right? The starting overs, and like, oh, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's do it again. But it's sovereign. That's the beautiful thing
Yeah.
about what we're doing. It's all sovereign work. It's all building from the ground up, based upon our own inner wisdom, based upon our own structure. It's all sovereign. So the work doesn't even
Exactly.
feel like work anymore. It feels like play. It feels like we are playing, and we remain curious and in that high vibration, versus going to work for somebody, and gaining. Yes, you gain responsibility, you may get a check, blah blah blah, and that's okay. But again, if you're moving really through the spiritual journey, there is that moment when you want that expansion. That expansion is going to take place, and that involves
Exactly.
trusting in all of the blueprint that has already been out, that's already there for you to build from. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been a really awesome, like 2021 has been a very awesome journey. And I say that word awesome in a way that, the all of the emotional highs and lows has just been very powerful. And it just reminded me to continue to stand how I stand, do what I do, even more so. And as you say, not playing small, like continue to believe in what's happening, and take and like say, yes, I'm ready. I receive it.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is the gift of all this stuff that's happening in the world, right? Like 2020, we like astrologically was already going to be a powerful year. And then
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh, but it was way more powerful than we thought. And I think what then that was like that made us really like see who who am I? Who do I want to be? Like I would say when all the shit hit the fan and it
Mhm.
just kept
Mhm.
coming and something, what's next? What's
Right.
next? And
Right.
I realized like I need to unplug from all the, like really unplug from this. And I can lose, I mean, it's unfortunate, but friends or even family, in the
Mhm.
sense
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
losing them in like, okay, the connection's not going to be the same because now
Right.
like we see each other, but I will not lose myself. And so that kind of
Right.
unplugging helped me to really like see who I am and stop playing small or stop hiding
Mhm.
behind my thimble hat. Um,
Mhm.
and then this year has been like it's 21, it's a 3 year, right? Like in that
Yeah.
sense, for the
Yes.
last two numbers, like
Yes.
three, I
Yes.
recognize that. Like 2020, the two at the end was to me
Mhm.
like you and another, like who's in front of you, right? Who do you have surrounding
Mm.
you? And then this year has been a huge spiritual growth year with that magical,
Mhm. Mhm.
number of that, the Trinity, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yes. Yes.
we can feel that it's a preparation for this 4 year
It's
to
yes.
be the
Yes.
foundation of what is the life we want to build.
Yes. It's
And I
definitely.
just want to
Yeah. I
say,
totally agree with
um, for those that maybe can't move to
that. Mhm. Mhm.
anywhere,
Mhm.
right? That
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
and I recognize that the work still was an internal work. Because if I see
Still
people
internal.
moving to like different states and in different places and different parts of the country, world and country and things.
Mhm.
But I think the key really is first you need to work on yourself so that you're ready for wherever you're moving,
Absolutely.
because if
Absolutely.
not, then you're just bringing your old
All
self
you
to this new
do
place,
is exactly.
and
Yes.
then you're going to be disappointed
Yeah.
because it's going to
Exactly. And
look
you're gonna
exactly the
blame.
same.
It's gonna look exactly the same, just with palm trees, or
Exactly.
or the mountains.
Exactly. Right. Right. And
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
that where people have this dissonance where they're like, what's going on? I'm in this place. And it's it's more of you can you can try to change your environment, but if you haven't changed your inner environment yet,
Hmm.
then you're just setting yourself up to even be more disappointed.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with that, and I even see that here. I see that
Yeah.
here. This is what would be considered, in 3D realm paradise. With all the beauty,
Mhm.
but there's also this the mindset, as you said, it's so important because people come here to escape. People actually come here to escape, not really integrate, but just escape the
Mhm.
realities that they lived in. And it's an unconscious feeling. It's a conscious movement. And so what I hear, especially like with the whole COVID stuff and blah blah blah. There's people here like that have groups, which I just find to be, you know, why, but there's people who have groups that's trying to like boycott like certain supermercados and shit like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
but they're not seeing that like there is fresh food and on the farms and working with the locals, and
Mm.
the
Yeah.
banks are still open. So it's like this fighting. They still feel like they got to fight for something. I'm like, you brought all that shit here. So
Exactly.
therefore
Yeah.
Therefore, this is the reality you're creating. You're creating that same reality you was trying to escape in this reality. And this reality, if
Yeah.
you know this is being more in the elements, when you're more in nature, it speaks to you even more loudly. Like that higher level
Mhm.
consciousness speaks to you even more loudly, so it gets more intense. And so people tend to lose themselves in these environments because, again,
Exactly.
the original mission was to escape rather than to go within and really work that shit out before you come to these places.
Right. And like there's it's called, or like in Greek terms, is Kairos time and Chronos time, right? So
Mm,
like places like island, mountain, places where it's a little
mhm,
more isolated is going to live on Kairos time. Like me, like it's a
mhm.
joke. We'll say like, oh, it's Mexican time. So like when you go to a party,
Yeah,
we go to our
exactly.
family goes to a party, like you show up when you show up,
Right,
and the
right,
party ends
right,
when it ends, right?
right.
Um, but there's a beauty in that, and I think I see that here is moving up to the
Mhm.
mountain is this is mountain time. Like you
Yeah.
somebody shows up when they can, like to repair something because they had other
Mhm,
calls and it's on the mountain. And especially now that
mhm,
it's snowing, like sometimes you can't get there and
mhm.
that's just what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes the power
It
goes
is.
out. The we
Yep.
can't get food like because the grocery store like maybe isn't stocked because the truck couldn't come up the mountain. And
Yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't recognize that, like, this is what I wanted, then people can get, and or if you recognize that in yourself, that there's a moment of like, man, this is inconvenient. But if this is what you
Mhm.
wanted, to have a different type of life, then you need to learn how to live
Yes,
within that. Like you said,
yes.
integrate into what do the locals do?
Right, right,
They're not
right.
starving.
They sure they are not. They're not even thinking about that. Like they're not even. That's what I say. They're not even thinking even in that mind frame because they see the food that is growing out of the backyard. Like
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And I love how you mentioned just the different frequencies because that's me and Autumn talk about it all the time as far as how this is such a spiral, like this island is such a womb, and you just continue to move in that space. And as you stated, just with the quote unquote inconveniences about living more off grid, so to speak, living in the mountains. So, we go through the same thing. Sometimes there's no electricity, sometimes we don't have no water. Sometimes, like
Mhm.
as far as like what time somebody's gonna be there, we're like, what, huh? You know, and you just learn to
Yep.
go with the flow. You really learn how to go with the flow. And I'm like, that is really what it is about really living in nature, living in the natural order versus putting such a restricted time frame on it. And for somebody
Mm,
who's so used to that, especially coming from a place where they're used to being told what to do and what time to do things, that is an initiation within itself. Is to
exactly.
learn to go with the fluidity of a new environment because the Dominicans ain't going to sit back and try to go with you. Like, they're not going to conform to that. It's like, no, you came to our country, our island, our element. Like, there's a reason why you're here, not to conform us, but really just get a new taste on what it means to live more in the fluidity of nature, of these
Yeah.
elements.
And that's true.
Yeah.
Nature's time is slower. What you like a seed in
So
the
much
ground, you're
so.
not going to keep digging it up to make sure it's growing, you
Mm.
just leave it and water it and you trust
Right,
that it's
right.
germinating.
Exactly. Yes,
Just like the
yes.
seasons, winter's a time to hibernate, to go within, to go in the dark, like
Yes,
to
yes,
go inward. It is that invitation, but we forgot how
yes.
to live within the seasons. We forgot how
So
to
correct.
live with that time of nature. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I
So
think
true.
that's the hard part is if you if you are just escaping for the sake of I need to get out of here and you don't realize that you
Yeah.
actually might have been part of that,
Mm-hmm,
of
mm-hmm,
that
hmm.
rat race and that pace, which is fine. Like that's
Yeah.
a reality. But if you're just trying to make somewhere else, now this is the right place. I'm going to wait until I get there. I'm going to wait until everything lines up
Hmm.
and then I will have.
Yeah,
Then
exactly.
you're not,
Hmm.
you're just searching externally for your happiness, for your sovereignty,
That's
for
right.
who you are.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And I do believe that's why, how my brain works too. I think that's how they invented vacations. Like, I really think they
Mm,
purposely invented vacations in order to vacate. Like, even that word vacate is in the word vacation. So vacate, escape,
That's right.
leave your shell, leave your environment with really no type of like consciousness around like not truly being and integrating with that environment. So people go on these vacations, and what usually happens on a vacation, typical vacation, they come to these environments, they get drunk,
Yep.
they have some random lover, and that's life.
Yeah.
That's their life. And they had a great time. And then they go right back into that matrix mind. They go right back into that construct,
Hmm.
and they're miserable again. So it's like, what did you
Exactly.
really get out of that? What did you really get out of
Yeah.
that? And but that's the pattern. That's like, it's typical. It's quote unquote normal to live like that. And we're like, nah, that's
Yeah.
not
That's
normal.
no, exactly. Exactly. And I even see it here, even though we're only, 40 minutes from, down below city life. Um,
Hmm.
we even talk about it like up here when people come up, it's like if it's Disneyland. Like all the rules are
Mm.
out. They're crossing,
Yeah.
with their kids across the street with their snow gear on the main boulevard, that's a highway. And
Yeah.
they're just like they park wherever they want. There's
Mm.
so many like Airbnbs up here. So there might be unfortunately not where we moved because we moved more to a rural area. We recognized, we
Mhm.
said, we were like, why would I move up to the mountain if it's just going to be that I need to
Right.
then go on a vacation, from my
Yeah.
home, right?
Exactly.
But people
Exactly.
do, they lose their sense of this is all out. Like you said, it's just
Hmm.
an escape.
Departing.
it's
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 departing.
my 2 weeks that I earned for working all year
Mm.
or whatever it
Uh-huh.
is, and I was a good boy and girl, and now I get to play.
Mm.
And it's
Yes.
like,
Yes. Yes.
how backwards that instead of
It's
living
so
daily
backward.
in that energy of I choose.
Hmm.
No, even if you did work at a job, but that you
Right.
say,
Right.
I choose. And I think this is what I really love and what I would like to weave into this conversation because I think
Uh-huh.
it's important for people to get a glimpse of like where you're at now, where I'm at now. But
Hmm.
part of it is we both are very open about like our story. We don't hide anything
Hmm.
because it's part of
Yeah.
who we are now. It's our story.
Hmm.
There's no shame in
Hmm.
it,
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and how when you before you really decided to unplug from everything,
Mm-hmm.
you were working as a counselor, right? And
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
as a therapist, and
Hmm. Hmm.
how did you weave your energy of being, and again these are words, but I think people
Yeah.
who are listening are going to think, I think that's me, and so we're kind of helping them along to like, yes, keep
Hmm.
following,
Hmm.
as a highly intuitive, as an empath,
Hmm.
as a light worker.
Hmm.
How did
Hmm.
you tell us a little bit about your previous life and how that looked and how you were kind of weaving that your gifts into that work, because I
Mm.
think it's really
Yeah.
important for people to see it's always you, and it's not about the
So,
work you do. You can work at a coffee shop. It's about who
hmm.
is doing that work. Who are you doing it,
Right.
you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Well, I would say, like, so as far as being a therapist, I was a therapist in the mental health and addiction field for, oh, like almost 20 years, working in that field alone and then just doing therapy. But, when I started really diving deeper into my spiritual journey and opening up in a way that was more shamanic, I started to believe in that realm so much that I just had such a difficult time hiding it anymore.
Mm,
So the more I will come into the workspace, the more I will have like a plan to interweave those gifts into that
Mm.
space. And so you're not alone. You know, you're not alone in the astral, and you're not alone here. But you have to be open to receive the gifts of what others can do, you know, in order to continue to expand in your gift. And we all interweave and we all commune in that way. So, so yeah, you know, I just could say, you know, continue to move forward, and whatever it is
Mm.
that anybody is trying to do right now. And it
That's right.
doesn't matter where you're at, you know, it doesn't matter, as I stated with my story, being in the matrix construct. The more you are if you're on your spiritual journey, know that that's opening up a door even in that construct. Like it's going to open up a
That's right.
door, and you just have to be there to see it. So stay present, you know, practice, you know, whatever you do, yoga, meditation, to keep yourself aware of those keys that are unlocking, so you can step forward, you actually
Mm.
move and move through the door. So yeah.
Yes. Yes, like Alice
Yes,
in
Alice in
Wonderland.
Wonderland. Yes,
You might have to be too small or too big, but there's always a
there's
way,
always
right?
a
You know,
way.
you just meet different people that have a little bit of information.
Yes.
They get you to the right
Yeah.
place. And that I love that, like what I'm reminded of is that you earlier said that you were proud that you created something that is sustained,
Mm,
that was not only accepted but needed
yeah.
and wanted,
Yeah.
and that it's sustained,
Yeah.
and that you said, that you can be proud
Yeah.
to say, I did
Yeah.
that without needing your name.
Right. Right.
You didn't need anyone to tell
Yeah.
you, hey, Tahira, thanks for doing
Yeah.
that. You recognize that, as
Exactly.
I think you can recognize now, that because you were not coming from,
Mhm.
once you created that new, space,
Mhm.
it within yourself, and also
Yes.
what you were offering,
Yes.
you were not coming from lack, so
Mhm.
you did not attract others who were trying to
Yeah.
fix you or rescue
Yes.
you.
Yes. Yes.
So then you received those who were there to help you grow. So you didn't have to worry about receiving help from people
Mhm.
in that frequency,
Mhm.
because we weren't
Yes.
takers.
Exactly. There's nobody
You
in the
know,
community that's like that. There's nope. Like we all come from that abundance, and we all come
hmm
in wanting to serve in that abundant frequency. Like there's no energy snatchers or whatever they call it. There's none of that
yeah,
going on. And no matter how much one believes that they are not sovereign, like that is a sovereign way to be when you come in from the
yeah,
fullness of your heart and just wanting to serve from that
exactly,
place.
exactly.
Yeah.
And recognizing that you are not better than another,
Right.
or you are not lesser than another.
Mhm. Mhm.
That you just see each other for the powerful being, but that we might be in different places in different things.
Yeah.
Some people it's with relationships, and others it's their spiritual
Yeah.
journey, and others it's with the abundance is coming
Yeah.
in, but that we're all doing this together
Yeah.
ultimately. But the only way that you can really change your outside
Mhm.
world is to work on self. And
Absolutely.
that's the shamanic
Yes, it
path.
is. Yes, that's the big one.
You were born that way, and it's not something that you just really take a course and have a certification. That's not the whole
That's not
point
the
of it.
whole point. And going to Peru
You
and
know,
studying with the shaman, like that's not.
yeah,
I mean, that could be a part of your external manifestation, but
yeah,
it began within. It began from that
right.
within work. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a hard road.
Yeah. Oh,
I think, like,
yeah.
you don't ask for it,
No.
because
No.
all the trauma that happens, that you go through and that
Yes.
you continue to.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's something that when you recognize,
Yeah.
that's when you see somebody
Yeah.
on that path.
Absolutely. So
Well,
I'm on.
thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you. This has been.
Yeah.
I know we could go on and on. We could just talk all day, but
Yes.
we could just go back and
So
forth.
the Lionheart community is where people can receive you have your monthly womb
Yes,
gatherings and then be able to be invited to any offerings that you have, right? So I'll
absolutely.
put that in the
Yeah,
show
yeah,
notes.
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, please join us if you feel aligned to the words and the resonance. And I look forward to continue to expand with everybody in this new year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here we go.
Right.
Buckle up. Put on your cape.
Right. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Tahira, so
Thank
much. This was
you. Thank
amazing.
you.
All right. I'll talk to you
All right.
soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.